Stern Face. Live with Stern Face. 2020. Ah, how lovely. I, myself, am truly fucking delighted that this year is ending and a new one will begin. But I cannot begin it wonky. Let me correct. Yeah, take a palm in the face. So, 2020, reasons to be happy. What did we learn in 2019? I think in 2019, I learned that it's okay to look at things and say that does not suit me. 2019 for me was all about my own personal journey of dealing with codependency. And as the year progressed and went through many strange twists and turns, and sort of opened up in front of me, I realised it was going in a direction I didn't expect it to go. I realised that me overcoming codependency might mean doing things that I had never thought would be related to codependency at all, and I also started to redefine it. I started to think of codependency, because it's not a clinical term, it's a term that's bandied about in different contexts. When we're talking narcissistic abuse, it's usually the person who's the victim, particularly a victim who stays, particularly a victim who stays in a narcissistically abusive relationship, even though they know it's bloody awful, they just stay in it. And we say, well, that's the codependent. Where does that come from? It comes from codependence historical roots. The term codependency is from Alcoholics Anonymous, and it was applied to the enabler, the person who enables and supports the alcoholic, even if they don't approve of their alcoholism, of their addiction to alcohol. They make it possible for that person to live in their alcoholistic cycle. So I was looking at that and I was thinking, well, fawn responder is probably better. And then as time went by and I started to redefine it, I thought, really, I think what I'm talking about when it's for me is a shrunken self. Ooh, a tiny little tiddler of a shrunken self, like a baby acorn frozen in the midwinter. Ooh, where you really want a big swinging dong of a self, not a tiny little tiddler. It's not so much fun to ask for what you want if you're a tiny tiddler. So I started to look at it from that point of view and go, okay, there's a shrunken self here. What would it mean if there was not a shrunken self? And I was like, where's the shrunken self come from? It's like, it's passivity. It's a toxified, passive mindset that I'm in. And you go, and then throughout 2019, I was like, oh, well, it's trauma, it's CPTSD, it's childhood. And then I went, no, it's cultural. It is trauma. It is from childhood. It is the absolving of the personal responsibility to claim that which you want and to claim that which is you. It's an absolution that we do, not because we want to, but because of slave mindset conditioning that's usually brought in through childhood trauma, usually brought in through narcissistically abusive relationships. But when I started to reframe again and level up again, I was like, but can't we also say we're in a narcissistically abusive relationship with, the people who are feeding us marketing messages, with the corporations that we serve, with social media, with mainstream media? Can't we say that that's a narcissistically abusive relationship? And I said to myself, yes, we can say that's a narcissistically abusive relationship. So you could have had perfectly good parents. You could have had what there's called in that body of literature, good enough parents. They really did nothing wrong, but you're still struggling with toxic passivity and still struggling with a shrunken self, because the methodology of narcissistic abuse inside of an emotionally abusive relationship is played out at the macrocosmic level in our relationship with forces that are higher than us but that govern our lives. Name them: your bank, your, as I said, mainstream media, your social media usage, the marketing messages that you are fucking bombarded with every day, bombarded with so subtly, so cleverly, and you're so conditioned to receive it that when I say you're bombarded with marketing messages, you will say, I'm not bombarded with marketing messages, Frodo. That's a projection. Perhaps you are. No, you are. But you don't see it and you don't hear it. But it's humiliating. This is another realization from 2019. The political ideology that we're infected with, the cultural, corporate, this version of capitalism ideology that we're infected with, the end result of it is humiliation. So one of my shifts in 2019 was to look and say, wow, where does humiliation come in? Where am I led to sort of feel like I'm not allowed to ask for what I want because I feel like a piece of shit because I've been humiliated? And then I started to go, oh, there. Now, the interesting thing for me and the interesting thing for you is I was also warning people in 2019. I said, this is the first year that I've done work on myself because I did it with the CPTSD, the emotional flashbacks, the superego, and I was very happy with that work. And then I was able to share it with people. Was able to regulate my own emotional flashbacks and level out my perceptions by emotionally re-regulating myself, so I wasn't at the mercy of projections and spikes of adrenaline and moods and cycling and all of the twisted perceptions and interpersonal turbulence that brings, because you're constantly in fight, flight, fawn, freeze. Who's the enemy? Who's the who's the enemy? Who's the friend? Who needs killing? A bit of Wing Chun for you. Oh, you've never seen moves like that before. Oh, a bit out of breath there. Moving hair as well. I see them. You weren't ready. Yeah. Anyway, so back to psychology. No. See, you weren't ready. What happened then? I don't know. I started talking about White Crane Kung Fu, and I ate some Skittles before this. I used to take drugs. Seriously, like Class A shit. Now, middle class, middle age, bourgeois addictions. I think I ate 5 Skittles in one go. I'm feeling the effects now. I'm gonna get a sweat on in a minute. What's wrong with him? Is that MDMA? Skittles. What is that, like code word for a drug? No, literal Skittles, just a handful. And what that made me realize over the year is I'm not going to be able to share this. So I was just saying to people, look, I'm just going to write a book and talk about it, and I'll tell you my anecdotes and my stories. You talk to me or listen, or we have this sort of interaction where I can read your questions, your comments and whatever, and we'll try and find a way and see if it helps. We'll just like throw pasture at the wall and see what sticks. See if it's a useful thing to do. And then as we've gone into particularly the last 6 weeks of this year, I'm like, I feel, honestly, it's the end of a year, it's the end of a decade. I don't give a shit about dates. Never in my life before have I given a shit. But this date, I'm finding myself, I wake up and I'm like, it's nearly over, yes! I feel like I'm getting to the end of this race line. It's all, maybe it's in the stars, maybe it's an energetic shift, I don't know. But I'm feeling like, oh, this is really good. And in the last 6 weeks, I got to the place where I was like, no, I can share this. I can help people. Wowie. Which makes me very, very, very happy, because that's what I do. Remember the Gospel of Thomas. If what is within you is brought out of you, what is within you will save you. If what is within you is left inside of you, what is within you will destroy you. This feels purposeful to me, and I'm really, really happy. So as the year progressed and I started looking at concepts like alchemy, I started to look at the concept of trauma being an opportunity for an ability to raise consciousness, raise conscious awareness, and the fact that many people who have suffered terribly, not all, but many, do seem to have a higher level of awareness and trauma. And in fact, it seems to be pain itself can be the wake-up call that makes people more switched on and more aware. I read The Courage to Be Disliked, which uses a lot of Adlerian psychology, which I highly recommend people have a look at. It's a really awful book. It's so badly written. It's incredible. It's a bestseller. It made me happy as a wannabe book writer myself. It's a great book, but it's not well written. You'll read it. I think it's just been run through Google Translate straight from Japanese to English, and it just reads like crap. But the concepts are so strong, it's really, really worth it. And it turns the Freudian model on its head. And one of the many useful ideas that it posits is, where you are at and what you're doing is what you really want to be doing. And then you work backwards from this end goal state with justifications and self-deception to say why you're there. And which is really challenging, for, depending if like you're miserable and you're suffering, you're like, well, what the hell, what kind of a suggestion is this? I want to suffer? No, not that you want to suffer, but that maybe your suffering is preventing you from a greater horror, not a real greater horror, but one that you think is there, which could be the horror of growing up. Could be the horror of needing to be brave. Could be the horror of having to take responsibility for stuff. Responsibility? Wow, that's heavy duty stuff, man. How to adult. And then as the year went on, you know how time moves, sometimes a bit like in Ibiza it kind of plodded along. And I was like, oh, this is quite pleasant. And then it went into Prague, and Prague is the time whirlpool. It went really, really fast. And then I came back to the UK and everything settled. And I was like, I actually have something here. I actually have something useful here. And what I'm going to do in 2020 is I'm going to be talking to people about using that concept of the alchemy and the intent and setting the intent, which is an important one. I probably should do a separate video on this, because there is something that happens that is out there that's outside of modern Western explanation as far as intent setting goes, but it's not as it's described in you name it. There is something, but if you're not wise, if you're a foolish person focusing on foolish things for foolish reasons, you're going to get fool's gold. Fool's gold will be the result of your foolish alchemical attempts. So you do actually need to have done the work emotionally. Plus I went to an Ayahuasca ceremony this year and I learned a lot about that. A lot of the focus walking away from that thematically was around ego and the danger of ego, and it literally played out in front of me. And that was an experience that was very intense and very heavy in some ways, but also very relieving in some ways, to be told, you're doing okay. It was like a further addition to the superego injunction from an externalized source, which was, you're doing okay. So next year in 2020, the reason why I feel good about this and positive about this now is I'm like, wow, there's really something here that I can share with people. With the dealing with CPTSD, healing the superego, emotionally regulating, these are juicy, like there's a thing there and it's deep. And it's not like you can't just go up the road and get it from somebody else, and you can't go to your counselor and your psychotherapist and get it from them because they didn't do it. I don't like to do work that other people can do. I don't like producing material that other people have already done, or that's like, well, it's slightly different, but it's basically it's a Richard Grannon spin on somebody else's material. So it's basically got some cock jokes and Star Wars stories in it and some drug references, and it's a bit funnier. Which is fine. Like, don't get me wrong, that's still good. That still is valuable, because you'll ingest material that you otherwise wouldn't have done because you like the way it's presented. It's totally fine. It just doesn't make me go, oh, fucking yes, that's good. That's what I want to hand over to people. Whereas this is. It hasn't got a name yet. I'm not going to call it overcoming codependency, and I'm not going to call it overcoming toxic passivity, because these are shitty names. Some people just look at codependency and go, well, that's not me. Toxic passivity, that's not me. And it's not really about overcoming codependency. 2020 is not really going to be about overcoming codependency. It's bigger than that. It's bigger than CPTSD. It's way bigger than CPTSD. It's way bigger than trauma. It's way bigger than a codependent fawning style of interacting with other human beings and interacting with reality. I don't know, like, it's a cure to the shrinking of the self. It's a cure to the breaking of the self, where you get to be a person, you get to be you. And I won't make any claim for it beyond that. I would just say, I'm going to give you back to you. And for some people who go, that sounds like some wispy mystical bullshit, I'm not going to do that. I go, that's cool. But if you've never been you, not really, you just don't feel good. You're like, oh, I have anxiety. Oh, I have depression. Oh, there's another thing I figured out in 2019. When people say they have anxiety and depression, 95% of the time, they just tell you that. It's not that they're lying, it's that they don't know how to verbalize what they have. So they just say that because everybody else is saying, they're not sheep, they're not just doing it because everybody else is doing it, but they're like, I wake up at night, I have these thoughts, I don't fucking feel good. It's anxiety, which is why we have this. It's like, you look at the psychological literature, they'll go, there's this explosion in anxiety and depression. Yeah, people are saying that they're anxious and they're saying they're depressed because they don't know how to say it any other way. So it's kind of a self-lie. It's kind of a self-deception. It's not really what's happening. I know what's happening is people don't fucking feel good because they're being invaded and broken down and messed with. You know, you're being interfered with in a very intimate, disruptive way that's enormously exploitative, which is terrible. But if you can point it and go, hey, I've been bloody interfered with, you can still live with like a sort of ferocious, I was beaten up, but I survived, I've got my scars, check me out kind of thing. But if you can't point and say, no, they did this to me, the tendency will be for the brain to blame itself, and you'll just end up blaming yourself, and then you won't feel good, you feel agitated. If you've never been you will feel agitated, you won't feel good. And that agitation over time, and the frustration of being pushed into these narrower and what feels like narrower and narrower boxes each year that passes, with less and less joy, less and less fun, less and less relevancy. A lot of people, I've realized this year in 2019, I was like, people just feel unseen. This is through talking to Sam about the social media phenomena. People just feel totally unseen. And that's depressing and anxiety inducing. They're experiencing a sense that they're sliding down the hierarchical totem pole, and you go, this is all nonsense. I'm like, well, it either is or isn't. We can have that debate. It's interesting philosophical conversation, but they really are or not. But they feel like they are. So our human system goes, me slide down totem pole, me now not relevant, me might die. It's a fear of death. It's a fear of, Sam Vaknin referred to something that he calls digital Darwinism. It's a fear that is me slide down. So you might, and people will say in the comments, I don't give a shit because I'm a Buddhist and I've overcome my ego and I took ayahuasca and I don't have an ego like at all anymore. I just let it go. People tell that story and they'll think that, but you can't fight your biology. You can't fight, you can fight your biology, but it's hard to win that fight. So evolutionarily, you're looking and you're going, where am I? Am I relevant in the tribe? First of all, what fucking tribe now? You need to identify that and have some philosophical way of dealing with the idea that you're not in a tribe anymore. Second of all, where am I on the tribe's hierarchical thing? Am I relevant? A lot of people, this is the big problem with social media, is it makes people feel daylight come and feel irrelevant. And if they feel irrelevant, guess what happens next? They feel humiliation. And it burns. Humiliation is shame and it burns. And you'll feel fucking agitated, like, fuck. Oh, whose fault is this? Who did this to me? And you'll look. And then the social media giants who know exactly what they're doing will feed you an enemy. They'll say, it's these people, it's this political group, it's this group of individuals, identified by whatever identitarian means of identifying the identified is on that particular day. Whatever the algorithm tells them is going to make you engage as much as possible. And at some primal level, at some infinitely wise level, you know you're being duped. Even as you take the chocolate and you take the serotonin from the tapping and you feed into this bullshit, you know you're being duped. And the primal side of yourself will respond to that with rage, with frustration. So how do we fight this? We've got to walk away from pretty much all of it. As far as drawing your you don't have to turn off your social media, you don't have to throw away your smartphone, but you do have to throw away the idea that you're drawing any kind of real validation from that. You've got to stop that. That's a hard reset. no validation from social media. The way I do social media is I'm like totally cold, totally boundaried. This is my enterprise. This is my project. I will only post if it is directly relevant to furthering the intent of the Spartan Life Coach project, or I'm not posting it, because although it's an addiction, and I know that it is. You may know the old Native American story of the feeding of the two wolves. It feeds the wrong wolf. It feeds the wrong wolf in you, and you don't want to feed the wrong wolf, because that wolf just gets hungrier and hungrier. We look around now and we see a lot of hungry, cranky, agitated wolves. I want wolves who are satiated. I want wolves who are satiated by eating something that's real, rather than this digital, pixelated, false garbage, this false validation. So that's what I mean when I said it about 7 minutes ago, probably longer, probably 9 minutes ago, about bringing people back to themselves and just going, that's it. I'm not doing anything else. You want your fantasy of escaping this reality through some law of attraction, mumbo jumbo, or whatever, go ahead. I won't fight you. I'm not here for that. I'm not attached to the idea that I need to convince a ton of people. The people who want it, we go with that. People who don't, totally cool. I respect that, man. Everybody's got a different way of getting things done, and that really is, that's fine by me. I'm not trying to be right, because I don't know what's right. I know what's right for me. I know what I've observed to be true, and I know what I'm prepared to share with other people. So that's what I want to do in 2020, is bring people back to themselves, bring people back to that which is real, because it's the only thing that makes you feel satiated. There's nothing else. There's nothing else. There's nothing else. We can't survive without love. We cannot survive without love. And when you have love in the system, the human system, the tribal system, the community, the nation, you can put up with anything. Any disease, any sickness, any illness that comes along, you'll fight it and you'll deal with it. When you take away love, you can't deal with any disease. We become weak. We become very weak individually. You'll catch colds all the time. Every cough that goes around, you'll get it. You'll have niggling injuries that don't go away. But if you have love, if you have validation, and it's coming from within, it's you to you. If it's you to you, that love, and then you to other people, to your community, you'll be strong as hell. Nothing can break that. They knew that a long time ago, which is why they've gone out of their way. Who is they? It's why they've gone out of their way to break it. It's actually an agenda that is directly against love and human connection. How can you tell me that it isn't? It's so clear that it is. So in 2020, I want to be offering people a solution to that. I want to be offering people a way of overcoming not just CPTSD. CPTSD is actually, on the scale of things, if you asked me in 2017, I was like, this is huge. This is most of what mental health issues are. It's trauma, it's childhood, it's past. And, it's great. I'm so happy. I'm really, really happy, because that's a good foundational building block, and you need that. You do have to resolve trauma, but it's not the story. This year I was like, no, I want to resolve codependency. And then as I was going along through the year, and things went weird and in wild, unusual directions, all of which we're happy to share with you next year in 2020, I realized it's way bigger than that. It's way bigger than overcoming codependency. It's way bigger than overcoming toxic passivity. It's actually about trying to be a human again. Wow. We've got to learn how to be, that's probably a good way of conceptualizing it. We've got to learn how to be humans again. We forgot. And our capacity to be human has been deliberately interfered with. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's not mumbo jumbo from some weird corner of the internet. Our capacity to be human was deliberately interfered with for the benefit of other people. It's not for your benefit. It's not for my benefit. Look how miserable people are, or have been. But I think that's over, and that's another reason to feel happy. I think things are going to get better. I'm very, very optimistic about the next year. That's 24 minutes. I'm meant to do 15. Blah, 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 blah. Why don't you have some more Skittles, Richard? Why don't you eat some more fucking Skittles and Tell us all a story. I could snort them next time. I'll snort them on camera. Now, I will take questions. Please make them 1 sentence long, and let's have them ending in a question mark. That was fast. Boxcar 402, boom. My friend is 45 for 3 years. She's more interested in being on FB goth groups. She's called a queen here. Rather than meeting friends in real life, she's isolated and seems fine with it. Any thoughts? If she seems fine with it, then that seems right. I don't know. Value judgments about people on the internet that I don't know. Let her be a goth queen if that's what tickles her whipples. 1 sentence long, ending in a question mark, asks Alex Sharp. Yes, that's correct. Is it possible to have a coefficient relationship? I don't know what that means. So, I don't know. Why do you think they want people to be attached to the story of overcoming stuff? What story of overcoming stuff, John? What do you think about going extinct as human beings? Yay, great idea, let's do it. No, this is a fight. We're not going to lose. Maria, help. How do I get over the anxiety of paying my bills even though I have dollars? Maria Toscano. I know you. Te conosco. There's probably some belief there around money and around personal responsibility and taking care of yourself and being a good adult, a good parent figure in your own life that needs to be looked at, needs to be overcome. Paying bills is a good time for me. Put on some bachata, do a little dance, pay them bills. I just love those bills, baby. Oh, yeah, that's fine. If there's a resistance that's creating an emotional flashback, that is something that would be dealt with by stopping the emotional flashbacks and doing some emotional literary work around that specific issue. Is this new direction because you went on the ayahuasca conference? No, it's not really a new direction, to be honest with you. I think this is a furtherance of where I was always supposed to go to. The ayahuasca was a profound experience. It was an interesting experience, but there was probably like 6 or 7 experiences last year, and that would be one of them that was formative in terms of the ayahuasca experience was one, a slap round the face, and then the second part of it was like a little cuddle that went, okay, you're doing okay. The only other part of the ayahuasca experience that I walked away from was I was like, everybody's gonna have to turn vegetarian, including me, and I don't want to be vegetarian, but eventually we're gonna have to. Oh, and that people should dance more. That's what the experience kept on saying. You got to teach people to dance. And I was like, I'm not going on YouTube dancing around, and the ayahuasca was going, yeah, you are. Yeah, you're gonna teach people how to dance. So dancing is important. Hi Richard, Happy New Year. Thanks for everything. Thank you. Why do you live in Dublin? Because it's a beautiful place. Oh, it's beautiful. I loved it. How do you feel about EMDR? Do you know that Frozen movie with the song Let It Go? I feel like whatever helps you to move forward is a good thing, and if it wastes your time, stop it and do something else. Do you think the current system of white supremacy and white privilege is narcissistic? If there is white supremacy, if there is any supremacy or privilege based on somebody's pallidity, how pale they are, how much melanin they lack in their skin, then that would be weird as fuck. And where that is happening, or there's any sort of exploitation based on melanin or bone structure, I'd say that was pretty fucking stupid. But perhaps, narcissistic. I mean, narcissistic types. The way that I view it is, say like something like racism or white supremacy. I don't think the white supremacy or the racism comes first. I think it's the narcissism that comes first. I think a lot of these ideologies that these lunatics pretend to espouse are just sticks. They're sticks to hit people with. They don't, say for example, famous white supremacists, reductio ad Hitlerum. Let's talk about Hitler and his boys. Did they really believe? I don't think that they really believed what they said, but like it was a club it was a society. That's how it started, as a secret society, and everybody's got to have the weird belief. Do you believe that we're descended from the special aliens? Yes, I think we are. How do you know? Well, we're nice and white, and we've got different coloured eyes, and therefore, like, the world should be ours. I think everybody should be blonde-haired and blue-eyed. So do I. What, you're all going to choose to breed 2 recessive genes? Okay. So I think the narcissism comes first. So you could be asking me about Catholicism, you could be asking me about feminism, you could be asking me about anyism, you could be asking me about people who are into Freudian psychoanalysis, you could be asking me about people who are into Adlerianism, Zen Buddhism, karate, fucking Gordon Ramsay's cooking school versus the other British, Jamie Oliver's cooking school. Anything. Narcissists don't believe in anything. They believe in themselves. These are sticks. And when I say stick, if you're not an English speaker, I mean a stick, like a tool, a weapon to hit people with. So there was a film, Spike Lee's movie, about the KKK that came out last year. And you look at, like, the people who are at the top of the KKK, and the movie's like, well, he's actually quite a soft, David Duke, he's quite a soft-spoken, intelligent guy, powered by a bunch of hicks. And I'm like, well, ain't that a fucking surprise? Like every fucking major organization is, it's pyramid shaped. And the dudes and dudettes at the top, they don't believe the shit they're feeding down at the bottom. Of course they don't. Because they're probably quite high IQ people who don't really want to work for a living, and they know if they jump on a bandwagon, then other people are going to follow it and give them money to, play Moses and lead the people to the promised land. It's been played out time and time again. So yeah, narcissism first. One of the problems that I think that we have when we're looking like in politics and the way things have gotten very heated at the moment is we're narcissism blind, we're psychopath blind. So we'll say, oh, that group is doing this. And you go, do you mean that? Like when you say women are, like maybe, Captain Nuance over here, maybe it would be useful to say people who are damaged in such a way that they now have highly narcissistic tendencies, rather than using a really large category group that encompasses half or more of the world's population by saying women, as an example, or white people, or whatever group, right? So, nuance, man. Nuance. Why do we not do nuance? Because people who are traumatized engage in black and white thinking because they want the world to be simple again. Is obsessing on predicting / imagination what they are doing now about my zombie witch doctor count as dissociation or flashbacks, or is it different entirely? Is obsessing on predicting about what they are doing now about your zombie witch doctor? Dude, you've used, and dissociation or flashbacks, you've used a lot of jargon. Some of it's jargon that I've given you to say that you're thinking about your ex. So let's keep it simple. You're thinking about your ex a lot. So there's probably some emotional literacy work that needs to be done there. There's probably some grieving that needs to be done there. It is possible for you to miss somebody, even though intellectually you know that they're a dick, especially if there was love and intimacy and sex in that location that your brain is going back to, and there's none in your life right now. Then your brain is going to be like, I'm thirsty. Where was the last time we found some water in this desert? Back there. Oh, I'm dreaming of that last oasis that we passed 7 days ago. I don't know why. You're thirsty. You need some love, and then you can think more clearly. And the problem is that a lot of people then go into another relationship with another human being. They look for that love externally, which just is karmically is heavy, man. But that's what most of the world is like. It's like, oh, I'm in love, I'm heartbroken, I'm really fucking angry and obsessed, and let me find somebody else while I'm still spinning off the back one, and then I'm going to bring them into my spin. I'm going to bring them into the trauma and the darkness and the pain that I'm going through, and then they're going to get hurt, and their hurts are going to come up, and we're going to hurt each other and spin it faster. It's a lot of spinning. It's time to stop the spinning. Justino says, so you just need to learn to love yourself? I can't tell you to just learn to love yourself. I can't do that. Nobody can tell you to do that. It'd be like saying, oh, you just need to just pull yourself up by your own bootstraps and fly to the moon. If it's not possible for you, then I shouldn't frame it in a way that makes it sound like it's easy. Just learn to love yourself. How is that helpful? If you could attain to that Herculean mission, then you would have achieved something really exceptional in this lifetime. To be able to accept yourself and to love yourself would be truly, truly exceptional. And if possible, yes, it would resolve so many issues in your life that you wouldn't recognize it's not that you wouldn't recognize yourself. No, that's minor. You wouldn't recognize life itself. You'd be like, oh, this is the world. Okay. So yeah, that's the end goal. How do I share, encourage, and help without being codependent? By remaining boundaried and not seeing another person's responsibility as theirs and separating it inside of your own mind and going, that's theirs, this is mine, and I'm not going to take what's theirs off them. So what the F is the answer? If family doesn't love us, then who will? Don't swear at me, Dr. Nazef. There is no quick and easy answer, my friend. I'm sorry to hear that you're feeling frustrated, but if you're in a lot of pain right now, the answers to that pain are probably not going to come from this YouTube video. Dr. Naz 07777, I adore you. Yes. There is a free course on stopping emotional flashbacks. It's available from SpartanLifeCoach.com. I encourage everybody who's watching this, who's struggling at the moment, to go get that. It takes about 2 to 3 hours to consume and 30 days to run the course. It's very easy once you've learned the technique 5 times a day. You've got to be emotionally regulated. You've got to sort out the emotions first. Tully is back. Hello, Tully, and thank you for moderating. I saw UG Rose and the Ancient Lantern in the comments. Thank you very much, guys, for helping me to moderate the chat. It's always nice to see you there. It just makes me feel like I have allies out here in the field. This one is from Tully, one of our moderators. How to deal with happiness, success, being okay, progress and accomplishments all being triggering as hell, because the primary thing that was punished as a child was not being miserable, in inverted commas. So the primary source of punishment as a child was happiness. So how do you deal with success? This is a major issue for a lot of people. When we're raised by highly narcissistic parents, they get very threatened very easily by their own children. And the idea that their children may rise higher than them and prove them to be the liars that they are is so dread-inducing in them that they frequently respond with a huge amount of very inappropriate, very damaging anger. And then they go out their way to destroy the child's confidence to make sure that they don't rise too high. So this was actually on the last course, the last big course that I released, the Science Inner Critic course. What that leaves you with is like a whole host of issues related to toxic shame and perfectionism. So the work that we have to do is working on that belief, which is something else. I've not done enough belief work just yet. Is working on that belief that you're not allowed to be successful. So another thing from 2019, and I did mention this quite a lot in 2019, as you could see it as the year went by, more and more, that I will be hammering in 2020, is a movement away from psychological solutions a little bit. I still use psychology, still love psychology, but towards more philosophical solutions. The philosophical solution here is to say, okay, I'm holding a belief that it's not okay for me to be successful. I've identified where this comes from in childhood. I now need to create a whole new worldview, a whole new philosophy. Everybody who's been traumatized has to do this. Everybody who's been traumatized has to restructure their worldview. If you've been traumatized and you're not recovering, the one single reason, maybe I should do a video on this, I probably should, it's pretty important. The one single reason why you're not is because you haven't restructured your worldview to accommodate the awful event. Restructuring a worldview is a philosophical task. Yes, religions cover it. Yes, spirituality covers it, from the New Age to this to that, but it's actually a philosophical issue, and it's a moral issue. Why is it a moral issue? Because somewhere in here we need to ascertain the values, the relative values of things, so that your unconscious can put it to bed. So this is why during the toxic passivity course, which was what I was focused on in the early part of the year when I was doing the lecture at UCLA, was helping people to develop a moral philosophy, because there's a healingness in that. That's what your parents are supposed to do. If they go inside and they smash down your value system, then you've got no moral philosophy. If you've got no moral philosophy, it's very hard to deal with trauma. People who are devout Christians that you know, many people who are watching this, people who are devout Muslims, devout Hindus, devout Buddhists that you know, you probably have got examples in your life where you've seen people who are still, they're not perfect people, it's not like they don't have problems, but they are devoutly into that system of thought, and they can actually handle some pretty heavy trauma quite well, because they have a robust system of philosophy, a moral philosophy that guides them through that. So the new moral philosophy that you need to develop, Tully, would be to say, okay, how is it possible that a person, because philosophy is deeper, is just for people. It's not about you. It's not about your trauma. It's not about me. It's not about my socks and my bank account. It's not about me as an individual. It's like people. So I would have you do it as like a literary exercise, as a writing exercise. Tell me about how it's okay for people to be successful. Why is it okay to be successful? Is it okay? Is it fundamentally evil to be successful? If you're successful, does that mean somebody else is suffering? You know, I get really like silly with it, because when you're stretching a muscle or a series of ligaments, you stretch in multiple directions. So I kind of want to get your neuroplasticity going on with like hitting it with different angles. Is it evil? Is money evil? And you need to be emotionally literate and be inside and go, oh shit, I actually kind of think money is evil. Well, okay, write that down, because you ain't gonna fucking make any if you're carrying that around, because your unconscious will override any conscious thought that says, hey, I'm gonna make some money, for example. Success is evil. Success, you know when people are successful? The only people who are successful are narcissists and psychopaths. Wowie, you believe that? You believe that? Yeah, I'm gonna do it. You'll never ever do it. And if you do, and you'll know people who've done this, they go crazy. They start drinking, they take drugs, they crash their car, they get arrested, they do crazy shit, because their level of success is in deep conflict with core beliefs, core values. So we've got to restructure things to be like, it's okay for me to be successful. In the same way that when I'm talking about rebuilding a self, it's like, it's okay for me to be seen. It's okay for me to be here. For people who are not traumatized, they'll be watching this going, I don't know what the fuck I've stumbled across, but this is weird as shit. Why would anybody think it's not okay for them to be here? Well, for some of us, we've lived our entire lives, for as long as we can remember, walking around, back bent, back bowed, being like, it's really not okay for me to be here. It's really not, there must be something wrong with me. Everything is wrong with me, everything, and nothing can shift that from when you're coming in. If you imagine a human being grows like a tower, and the earth, the foundations that are under the ground that you can't see is childhood, is the deep beliefs and the most intimate parts of themselves. Nothing that you as an adult to adult, tower to tower, can relate to that person is going to change what's in the foundation. There must be something wrong with me. It's not okay for me to be successful. It's okay for Richard to be successful. That's okay, but not me. Fuck that. Fuck that. To me, philosophically, I'm like, no, everybody. For number one, there's easily enough for everybody, like fucking 100 times over. And if everybody is going after what they want and they're successful at it, this world would be awesome. Awesome. It would be so fucking good. It would be great if everybody was going after it in the way they wanted to. If we would all just giving it to the corporations and saying, no, if I want to get a table made, I want to see my mate Tully, the table maker, or whatever it is, because that would bring craftsmanship back. Right now, I walk past I probably shouldn't say the name of it, a chain yesterday, 2 days ago. I'd come out of Windsor Castle and I'd walked around Windsor Castle, so my brain was all like, oh, feudalism and the philosophy of the ancient days, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, oh, I'm hungry and I want to eat something and maybe drink a flat white. So I walk out the castle. It's pretty cool in Windsor Castle, man. You can see a lot of really, really interesting bits and pieces of history that just like so don't fit with the modern world. And I walk past, it's a chain. It's not Starbucks, it's not Eat, it's not Wagamama, it's not whatever it was. And I looked inside and what I wanted to do is I wanted to walk through their forecourt to get where I was going. And I was like, oh, I shouldn't really do that because that's their restaurant and it's not part of the public walkway. I can't do. And then I looked and I was like, who's going to stop me? Well, the people who work there, the people who own the place. So I looked in and I was like, there's no people who work there. There's no people who own the place. There's human beings who are on a wage to be stacking the shelves and making the coffee, but there's no person who's like, well, I tell you, this particular branch of Star Bubble is me and it's my life and I won't have you walking across my sir. They're just like, you could just see on their faces, they're like, I don't care. Just leave me the fuck alone. I'm being paid the smallest amount of money possible for them to not get in trouble legally to do a job. It's a job, but it's not fun. It's really hard to make that kind of thing fun because it's inhuman. Because there's no humans there. From the person who's stacking the shelves to whoever the managing director face or the top of marketing is this year, there's no human ultimately who's really invested in that entity. It's totally faceless. And everybody from the bottom to the top is a slave to, what is it? The brand? The icon? That's magic. I'm like, wow, what the fuck? Who are we serving? And what do we feed them with? Time and attention. It's human sacrifice. It's human sacrifice of time and attention. When I go in there and buy like a flat white from them, I'm sacrificing my time and my attention in the form of money. To who? To nobody. Nobody, no human ever really consumes that. Do you feel me? It's crazy, man. Don't go to Windsor Castle. It's a psychedelic experience. You will come out and see the world as pure capitalism ideology at its purest. Give me a question. I went off there. Commenting on mobile is garbage. I agree. Are there really any healthy people out there, or is it about picking your poison when deciding what you can tolerate in a relationship? Damn. Picking your poison when you can tolerate in a relationship. Well, I feel you, homie. There's a wounded soldier right there. So everybody just projects some love that way. My own humble opinion is it's a cultural trope, it's a cultural problem. We place way too much pressure on boy-girl, man-woman relationships. And it's bound to fail. It's bound to fail. You just can't. Where you just go, I watched a movie the other day, Last Christmas. It's it's atypical, I suppose. It does have a good twist. But it's rom-com fodder. But even with its twist, the essence of the story is, now that we're in a post-religious age and we don't really believe we're going to heaven, your heaven on earth will be with a really cute but intelligent but clean-shaven but charming but wacky but crazy but enlightening man or woman who's going to do this for you and this for you, and they're going to make you see the world in a different way, and you're going to love each other, and you're going to build you build a new reality, and through building that new reality you're going to get out of this one. And I'm like, oh no. Because the horrifying thing with that is it will work for a period of time, and that's what makes me really sad when I see people doing it, and they're like, hey, these drugs work just fine, and I'm like, yeah, keep taking them. They got like an 18-month limit on them, and that's hardwired into your biology. It can't last. So my humble opinion is, if you have two adults together, then you'll be okay. You'll both be fine. But an adult wouldn't put childish expectation. Like, so that means my protection is I'm not going to put my childish expectations on you because I know you can't save me because you're an idiot in socks, just like me. And if she's not putting her childish expectations on me, I'm not going to disappoint her and make her feel ripped off. I don't want to get too much into that, but we know that a lot of the psychology of how men-women relationships break down can very often be by women feeling like they've been ripped off. Like feeling like, oh, I got attracted to this guy and he seemed to be all that, and then I got with him and I found out he was basically just a fucking idiot in socks. There is a problem that's external to you and external to me, which is we live within a culture where people aren't being actively encouraged every day to grow down and to avoid at all costs growing up. Avoid all your responsibilities, go down. Stay an infant, be infantilized, be silly, be indulgent, be individualistic, be a consumer, be narcissistic. And that makes it very hard to find another adult to bond safely with. But I think that can change. I think that can change in time. But yeah, reducing it to the question of, oh, do I just need to pick my poison? I just got to pick between this dickhead over here and this dickhead over there. I'm laughing because I have asked myself the same thing many times, and now I think no, that's a philosophical problem, man. That's a philosophical, like, what do you really want? And you go, well, I want to be in love, and I'm like, I actually think that you want to love the life you're living. That sounds kind of cheesy. I sounded like a life coach for a second there. Oopsie, but I think it's true. If you wake up and you're like, I get to do this now, you won't be swiping on Grindr and Tindler and Bumbler and Bimbler. You won't. If you are doing that, there's something else going on and you're not happy and your life needs looking at. But if you want, like, hey, one day you'll meet a guy and he's going to be fucking great. I can't. No, there's just people. There's no, it doesn't exist. There's just people out there. You should see Last Christmas, by the way. It's really silly. Really, really silly. But it was kind of fun. It was kind of fun as well, with a good plot twist in it. So, ladies and gentlemen, somebody's written, ooh, I want Bimbler. That's the name of my dating app. And all you can see is people's feet and their socks. And it just says, an idiot in socks. That's it. That's all you see. Bimbler is for idiots in socks. I immediately regretted saying feet because I'll be like, so it's foot fetish. It's like, God help me. Why did you put me in this reality? I did not ask for this one. You misheard me. You should open your ears. It's beautiful. It is. I like it. So thank you very much for your time and for your attention as ever. Thank you very much for your continued support this year. Throughout 2019, I had many twists and turns and interesting things for me, which I'm looking forward to sharing with you, and I'm hoping that will be useful. We'll get into that in 2020. There's work to be done, and I'm very much looking forward to doing that work with you all. Thank you for your time and your attention, and I look forward to speaking to you again very soon. Cheers.